Chapter 29 Stories of 1. Chennai's Bhajani Mela, Tendulkar's father and son, Dr. Captain Hate, woman Narvekar. This chapter describes other interesting and wonderful stories of Sai Baba. 1. Chennai's Bhajani Mela. It was in the year 1916 when a Chennai's Bhajani Mela party of the Ramdasi Panth started on a pilgrimage to the holy city of Banaras. The party consisted of a man, his wife, daughter, and sister in law. Unfortunately, their names are not mentioned. On their way, the party heard that there lived in Shirdi, Ahmednagar, a great saint named Sai Baba, who was God realized and who was very generous and distributed money every day to his bhaktas and to skillful persons who went and showed their talent there. A lot of money in the form of dakshina was collected daily by Sai Baba, and out of this amount he gave daily 1 rupee to a 3-year-old girl, Amani, a daughter of the Bhakta Kondaji, and rupees 2 to 5 to some, rupees 6 to Jamali, the mother of Amani, and rupees 10 to 20 or even 50 to other bhaktas as he pleased. On hearing all this, the party came to Shirdi and stayed there. The Mela did very good bhajan and sang very good songs, but inwardly they desired money. 3 of the party were full of avarice, but the lady or mistress was of a very different nature. She had regard and love for Baba. Once it so happened that when the noon arti was going on, Baba was much pleased with her faith and devotion and gave her vision for her Ishta Devata. To her, Baba appeared as Sita Nath, while to others the usual Sai Nath. On seeing her beloved deity, she was very much moved. Tears began to flow from her eyes and she clapped more her hands in joy. The people began to wonder at her joyful mood, but were not able to guess its cause. Late in the afternoon, she disclosed everything to her husband. She told him how she saw Sri Ram in Sai Baba. He thought that she was very simple and devout woman and her seeing Ram might be a creation of her mind. He ignored her, saying that it was not possible that she alone should see Ram, while they all saw Sai Baba there. She did not resent this remark as she was fortunate enough to get Ram Darshan. Wonderful vision. Things were going on like this when the husband got a strange vision in his dream one night. He saw in a big city the police there had arrested him, tied his hands with a rope, and put him in a cage. As the police were tightening the grip, he saw Sai Baba standing quite outside near the cage. On seeing Baba so close, he said in a plaintive tone, "After hearing your fame, I resorted to your feet, and why should a calamity befall when you are standing here in person?" Baba said, "You must suffer the consequences of your action." He said, "I have not done anything in this life which would bring such a misfortune on me." Baba said, "If not in this life, you must have committed some sin in your past life." He replied, "I do not know anything of my past life, but assuming that I did commit some sin, then why should it be burnt and destroyed? Why should it not be burnt and destroyed in your presence as happens to dry grass before fire?" Baba, have you got Baba, have you got such faith? Hey, yes. Baba then asked him to close his eyes. No sooner did he shut them than he heard a thumping sound of falling down, and after opening his eyes, he saw that he was free and the police fallen down bleeding. Being much frightened, he began to look at Baba, who said, "Now you are well caught. Officers will now come and arrest you." Then he begged, There is no other savior except you. Save me anyhow. Then Baba again asked him to close his eyes. He did so, and when he opened them again, he saw that he was free out of the cage and that Baba was by his side. He then fell at Baba's feet. Baba then asked him, "Is there any other difference between this namaskar and your previous ones? Think well and then reply." He said, "There is a lot of difference. My former namaskars were offered with the object of getting money from you, but the present namaskar is one offered to you as God. Besides, earlier I thought resentfully that you, being a Mohammedan, were spoiling us Hindus. Baba, you do not believe in your own mind in Mohammedan gods?" He said, "No." Then Baba said, "Have you got a panja, emblem of hand, in your house? And do you not worship the same in Tabu, Muharram festival? Also, there is in your house another deity by name Kad Bibi, whom you propitiate and appease on marriage occasions and other festivals. Is it not so?" He admitted all this. Then Baba said, "What more do you want?" Then a desire arose in his mind to get the darshan of Sri Guru Ram Das. When Baba asked him to turn back and see, and when he turned around, lo, Ram Das was in front of him. No sooner did he bend to fall at his feet, Ram Das vanished. Then he inquisitively asked Baba, "You look old. Do you know your age?" Baba, "What? Do you say I am old? Just race with me and see." On saying this, Baba began to run and he too followed. Baba disappeared in the dust raised by his footsteps while running, and at that time man was awakened. After awakening, he began to think seriously about the dream vision. His mental attitude was completely changed and he realized the greatness of Baba. After this, his doubting tendencies disappeared and pure devotion to Baba's feet descended on his mind. The vision was a mere dream, but the question and answers therein were most significant and interesting. Next morning, when all the persons assembled in the masjid for the arati, Baba gave him prasad, 2 rupees worth sweetmeats, and also 2 rupees from his pocket, and blessed him. He made him stay there for a few more days and gave him his blessing, saying, "Allah will give you plenty and He will do you good." He said, not get more money. He did not get more money there, but he got far better things, namely Baba's blessings, which stood him in good stead all along. The party got money afterwards, and their pilgrimage was successful as they did not suffer any trouble or inconvenience during their journey. They all returned home safe, thinking of Baba's words and blessings, and the anand they experienced by his grace. The story illustrates one of the methods which Baba followed in some cases to improve and reform his devotees. Tendulkar family. There lived in Bandra a Tendulkar family, all the members of which were devoted to Baba. Mrs. Savitribai Tendulkar has published a Marathi book named Sri Sainath Bhajan Mala containing 800 abhangs and padas describing the leelas of Baba. It is a book worth reading by those who are interested in Baba. The son, Babu Tendulkar, was studying hard day and night and wanted to appear for the medical examination. He consulted some astrologers. On examining his horoscope, they told him that the stars were not favorable that year and that he should appear for the examination next year when he would be certainly successful. This cast a gloom over him and made him restless. A few days afterwards, his mother went to Shirdi and saw Baba. Amongst others, she mentioned the gloomy and morose condition of her son, who was to appear for the examination in a few days. On hearing this, Baba said to her, "Tell your son to believe me, to throw aside horoscopes and predictions of astrologers and palmists, and go on with his studies. Let him appear for the examination with a calm mind. He is sure to pass this year. Ask him to trust me and not to get disappointed." The mother returned home and communicated Baba's message to her son. Then he studied hard and in due course appeared for the examination. In the written papers he did well, but being overtaken by doubts, He thought that he would not secure sufficient marks for passing, so he did not care to appear for the oral examination. But the examiner was after him. He sent word through a fellow student stating that he had passed in the written examination and that he should appear for the oral. The son, thus being encouraged, appeared for the oral examination and was successful in it also. Thus, he got through the examination that year successfully by Baba's grace, though the stars were against him, as indicated. It is to be noted here that doubts and difficulties surround us just to move us and confirm our faith. We are tested, as it were. If we only hold on steadily to Baba with full faith and continue our endeavors, our efforts will be ultimately crowned with success. The father of this boy, Raghunath Rao, was serving in some foreign mercantile firm in Mumbai. As he grew old, he was not able to attend to his work properly, so he had to take leave and rest. As he did not improve during the period of leave, a further extension of leave or premature retirement from service was inevitable. The chief manager of the firm decided to retire him on pension as he was an old and reliable servant. The question regarding the amount of pension to be was considered. He was given rupees 150 per month, and his pension, that is half the amount, namely rupees 75, would not be enough to meet the expenses of the family, so they were all anxious about this matter. 15 days before the final settlement, Baba appeared to Mrs. Tendulkar in her dream and said, "I wish that rupees 100 should be settled as pension. Will this satisfy you?" She replied, "Baba, why ask me this? We fully trust in you." Though Baba said rupees 100, still he was given rupees 10 rupees more, that is rupees 110 as a special case. Such wonderful love and care did Baba exhibit towards his devotees. Captain Hate. Captain Hate, who was staying in Bikaner, was a great devotee of Baba. Once Baba appeared to him in his dream and said, "Did you forget me, Hate?" Then immediately held Baba's feet and replied, "If a child forgets his mother, how could he be saved?" Then Hate went into the garden, took out fresh walpapdi vegetables, and after arranging shiddha, ghee, wheat flour, and dal, etc., and dakshina, was about to offer all this to Baba when he was awakened and came to know that the whole thing was a dream. Then he decided to send all these things to Baba at Shirdi. When he came to Gwalior some days afterwards, he sent rupees 12 by money order to a friend with instructions that rupees 2 should be spent in buying Shiddha articles and Valpapdi vegetables, and those should be offered to Baba with rupees 10 as dakshina. The friend went to Shirdi, purchased the things mentioned, but Valpapdi was not available. In a short time, a woman turned up with a basket on her head, which curiously enough contained the Valpapdi vegetables. It was purchased, and then all the things were offered to Baba on behalf of Captain Hate. Mr. Nimonkar prepared the Naivedya, rice and Valpapdi vegetables next day and offered the same to Baba. All of the people were surprised to see that Baba, while dining, took and ate Valpapdi and did not touch rice and other things. Hate's joy knew no bounds when he learned this from his friend. Consecrated rupee. At another time, Captain Hate wished that he should have in his house a rupee consecrated by Baba with his touch. He came across a friend who was bound for Shirdi. Through him, Hate sent his rupee. Then the friend went to Shirdi, and after the usual salutation gave first his dakshina, which Baba accepted. Then he gave Hate's rupee, which Baba took in his hand and began to gaze at it. He held it in front, tossed it up with his right thumb and played with it. Then he said to the friend, "Return it to its owner with the prasad of Udi. Tell him that I want nothing from him. Ask him to live in peace and contentment." The friend returned to Gwalior, handed over the consecrated rupee to Hate, and told him all that happened at Shirdi. This time Hate was much pleased and realized that Baba always encouraged good thoughts and as he wished intently. Vaman Narvekar. Now let the readers hear a different story. A gentleman named Vaman Narvekar loved Baba very much. He once brought a rupee. On one side, observe, of it were engraved the figures of Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. On the other was engraved the figure of Maruti with folded hands. He offered it to Baba with the hope that he should consecrate it with his touch and return it to him with Udi. But Baba immediately pocketed it. Then Shama spoke to Baba regarding Vaman Rao's intention and requested him to return it. Then Baba spoke in the presence of Vaman Rao. Why should it be returned to him? We should keep it ourselves. If he gives rupees 25 for it, it will be returned. Then for the sake of that rupee, Vaman Rao collected rupees 25 and placed them before Baba. Then Baba said, the value of that rupee far exceeds rupees 25. Shama, take this rupee. Let us have it in our store. Keep this in your shrine and worship it. No one had the courage to ask why he followed this peculiar action. He only knows what is best and most suitable to each and all. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 29. Chapter 30. Drawn to Shirdi. Kakaji Vaidya of Vani. Ramlal Punjabi of Mumbai. In this chapter, the story of two or more devotees who were drawn to Shirdi is narrated. Preliminary. Bow to the kind Sai who is the abode of mercy and who is affectionate towards his devotees. By his mere darshan, he does away with the fear of worldly illusion and destroys their calamities. He was first nirgun, formless, but on account of the devotion of his bhaktas, he obliged to take a form. To give liberation, self-realization to the bhaktas is the mission of the saints, and for Sai, the chief of them, that mission is inevitable. Those who take refuge in his feet have all their sins destroyed, and their progress is certain. Remembering his feet, Brahmins from holy places come to him and read scriptures and grant the Gayatri mantra in his presence. We who are weak and without any merits do not know what bhakti is, but we know this much, that though all others may leave us, Sai won't forsake us. Those whom he favors gets enormous strength, discrimination between the unreal and the real and the knowledge. Sai knows fully the desire of his devotees and fulfills the same. Hence, they get what they want and are grateful. So we invoke him and prostrate ourselves before him. Forgetting all our faults, let him free us from all anxieties. He who, being overcome with calamities, remembers and prays Sai thus, will get his mind calmed and pacified through his grace. This Sai, the ocean of mercy, says Hemad Pant, favored him, and the result of this is the present work Sai Satcharitra. Others, what qualifications had to be taken this enterprise? But as Sai took all the responsibility, Hemad Pant felt no burden nor any care about this. When the powerful light of knowledge was there to inspire his speech and pen, why should he entertain any doubt or feel any anxiety? Sai got the service in the form of this book done by him. This is due to the accumulation of his merits in the past birth, and therefore he thinks himself fortunate and blessed. The following story is not a mere tale but pure nectar. He who drinks it will realize Sai's greatness and all pervasiveness. Those who want to argue and criticize should not go in for this. What is wanted here is not discussion but unlimited love and devotion. Learned, devout, and faithful believers, or those who consider themselves as servants of Sai, will like and appreciate these stories. Others will take them to be fables. The fortunate bhaktas of Sai will find the Sai Leelas as the Kalpataru, wish-fulfilling tree. Drinking in and devouring this nectar of Sai Leelas will give liberation to the ignorant jivas, satisfaction to the householders, and a sadhana to the aspirants. Now we come to the story of this chapter. Kakaji Vaidya. There lived in Vani, Nasik district, a man named Kakaji Vaidya. He was the priest of the goddess Saptashringi there. He was so overpowered by adverse circumstances and calamities that he lost peace of mind and became quite restless. Under such circumstances, one evening he went to the temple of the goddess and prayed unto her from the bottom of his heart and invoked her aid to free him from anxiety. The goddess was pleased with his devotion and the same night appeared to him in his dream and said to him, "You go to Baba and then your mind will become calm and composed." Kakaji was anxious to know from her who is Baba, but before he could get any explanation, he was awakened. Then he began to think as to who might be this Baba to whom the goddess had asked him to go. After some thinking, he resolved that his Baba might be Triambakeshwar, Lord Shiva. So he went to the holy place Triambak, Nashik district, and stayed there for 10 days. During this period, he bathed early in the morning, chanted the Rudra hymns, and did the Abhishek, pouring fresh water over the pindi, and did other rituals, but with all this he was as restless as before. Then he returned to his place and again invoked the goddess most pitifully. That night she again appeared in his dream and said, "Why did you go to Triambakeshwar in vain? I mean by Baba Sri Sai Samarth of Shirdi." The question before Kakaji now was how and when to go to Shirdi and how to see Baba. If anybody is in real earnest to see a saint, not only the saint but God also fulfill his wish. In fact, the Sant and the Anant are one and the same. There is not at least difference between them. If anybody thinks that he will go on his own wish and see a saint, that will be a mere boast. Unless the saint wills it, no one is able to go and see him. Even the leaf of a tree won't move without his bidding. The more anxious a bhakta is for the visit of the saint, the more devout and faithful he is, the more speedily and effectively is his wish satisfied to his heart's content. He who invites anybody for a visit also arranges everything for his reception. So it happened with Kakaji. Shama's vows. When Kakaji was thinking about his intended visit to Shirdi, a guest came to him at his place to take him to Shirdi. He was no other than Shama, a very close and intimate devotee of Baba. How he came to Vani at this juncture, we shall just see. Shama was severely ill when he was very young, and his mother had taken a vow to her family goddess Saptashringi at Vani that if her son got well, she would bring and dedicate him at her feet. Then, after some years, the mother herself suffered from ringworms on her breast. At that time, she again took another vow to her deity that if she got all right, she would offer her 2 silver breasts. These 2 vows remained unfulfilled. At her deathbed, she called her son Shama and drew his attention to the vows, and after taking a promise from him that he would fulfill them, she breathed her last. After some time, Shama forgot about these vows, and thus 30 years elapsed. About this time, a famous astrologer had come to Shirdi and stayed there for a month. His predictions in the case of Sriman Bhuti and others came true, and everybody was satisfied. Shama's younger brother, Bapaji, consulted him and was told about his mother's vow, which his elder brother had promised to fulfill at her deathbed and not yet fulfilled. Hence, the goddess was displeased with him, and that was bringing troubles on them. Bapaji told this to his brother Shama, who was then reminded of the unfulfilled vow. On thinking that any further delay would be dangerous, he called a goldsmith and got a pair of silver breasts prepared. Then he went to the masjid, prostrated himself before Baba, and placing before him the 2 silver breasts, requested him to accept them and free him from the vows as to him. He was his Saptashringi goddess. Then Baba insisted upon him to go himself to the temple of Saptashringi and offer them at the feet of the goddess. Thus, after taking Baba's permission and Udi, he left for Vani, and while searching for the priest, reached Kakaji's house. Kakaji was then very anxious to visit Baba, and Shama went there to see him at that very time. What a wonderful coincidence was this! Kakaji asked him who he was and whence did he come, and on learning that he came from Shirdi, he at once embraced him. So overwhelmed was he with love. Then they talked about Sai Leelas, and after finishing the rites of Shama's vows, they both started for Shirdi. On reaching the place, Kakaji went to the masjid and fell at Baba's feet. His eyes were soon bedewed with tears and his mind maintained calmness. According to the vision of the goddess, no sooner did he see Baba, his mind lost all its restlessness and became calm and composed. Kakaji began to think in his mind, what a wonderful power is this. Kakaji, Baba spoke nothing. There was no question and answer, no benediction pronounced. The mere darshan itself was so conducive to happiness. The restlessness of my mind disappeared by his mere darshan. Consciousness of joy came upon me. This is what is called the greatness of darshan. His vision was fixed on Sai's feet and he could utter no word. Hearing Baba's Leelas, his joy knew no bounds. He surrendered himself completely to Baba, forgot his anxiety and cares and got undiluted happiness. He lived happily there for 12 days and after taking Baba's leave, Udi and blessings returned home. Kushal Chand of Rahata. It is said that a dream which he get in the wee hours of the morning generally comes out true in the waking state. This may be so, but regarding Baba's dreams, there is no restriction of time. To quote an instance, Baba told Kaka Sahib Dikshit one afternoon to go to Rahata and fetch Kushal Chand to Shirdi. As he had not seen him since long, Kaka Sahib accordingly took a tonga and went to Rahata. He met Kushal Chand and gave Baba's message. On hearing it, Kushal Chand was surprised and said that while he was taking a noon nap after meals, Baba appeared in his dream and asked him to come to Shirdi immediately and that he was anxious to go. As he had no horse of his own nearby, he had sent his son to inform Baba. When his son was just out of the village border, Dikshit Tonga turned up. Dikshit then said that he was sent specially to bring him. Then they both went in the Tonga back to Shirdi. Kushal Chand saw Baba and all were pleased. Seeing this Leela of Baba, Kushal Chand was much moved. Ramlal Punjabi of Mumbai. Once a Punjabi Brahmin of Mumbai named Ramlal got a dream in which Baba appeared and asked him to come to Shirdi. Baba appeared to him as a Mahant, but he did not know his whereabouts. He thought that he should go and see him, but as he had not his address, he did not know what to do. But he who calls anybody to him also makes the necessary arrangements for the same. The same happened in this case. The same afternoon, when he was strolling in the streets, he saw a picture of Baba in a shop. The features of the Mahant he saw earlier in his dream tallied exactly with those of the picture. Then on making enquiries, he came to know that the picture of Sai Baba of Shirdi. He went soon after this to Shirdi and stayed there till his death. In this way, Baba brought his devotees to Shirdi for darshan and satisfied their wants, materials as well as spiritual. Bhav to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 30. Chapter 31. The passing away in Baba's presence of 1. Sannyasi Vijayanand, 2. Balaram Mankar, 3. Nulkar, 4. Megha, 5. The tiger. In this chapter, Hemad Pant describes the passing away of certain devotees and a tiger in Baba's presence. Preliminary. The last wish or thought that a man has at the hour of death determines his future course. Sri Krishna has said in Gita that he who remembers me in his last moments comes verily to me, and he who meditates otherwise at that time goes to what he longs for. We cannot be certain that we can entertain a particular good thought at our last moment, for more than often than not, we are more likely to be frightened and terrified by death. Hence, constant practice is necessary for enabling us to fix our mind on any desired good thought at any moment. All saints therefore recommend us to remember God and chant His name always, so that we may not be perplexed or perturbed. When the time for departure comes, the devotees on their part surrender themselves completely to the saints, fully believing that the saints would guide and help them in their last moments. A few such cases will be noted here. 1. Vijayanand. A Chennai sannyasi named Vijayanand started on pilgrimage to Mansarovar. En route, on hearing Baba's fame, he halted at Shirdi. There he met one Somadevji Swami of Haridwar and inquired from him about the Mansarovar trip. The Swami told him that the Sarovar was 500 miles above Gangotri and described to him the difficulties of the journey, namely plenty of snow and the change of dialect every 50 kos, and the suspicious nature of the local people who give a lot of trouble to the pilgrims on the way. On hearing this, the sannyasi was dejected and cancelled the trip. Then, when he went to Baba and prostrated himself before him, Baba got enraged and said, "Drive out this useless sannyasi, his company is of no use." The sannyasi did not know Baba's nature. He felt discomforted but sat there watching things that were going on. It was the morning darbar and the masjid was overcrowded. Baba was being worshipped in various ways. Some were washing his feet, some taking the teerth and drinking it heartily, and some touching their eyes with it. Some were applying sandal paste and some scents to his body. And all were doing these things, forgetting the distinction of caste and creed. Though Baba got enraged with them, he was filled with affection for Baba. He did not feel like leaving the place. He stayed in Shirdi for 2 days when he got a letter from Chennai stating that his mother was very ill. He felt very dejected and wanted to be by his mother's side. But he could not leave without Baba's permission to return home. The omniscient Baba, knowing the future, said to him, "If you loved so much your mother, why did you take sannyas? Attachment makes misuse of the orange garb. Go and sit quiet at your lodging. Wait with patience for a few days." In the Vada, there were robbers. Bolt your doors and be very vigilant. The thieves will carry everything. Wealth and prosperity are transient, and the body is subject to decay and death. While knowing this, do your duty, leaving all attachments with the things of this world and next. He who does this and surrenders himself to the feet of Hari will get free from all troubles and attain bliss. The Lord runs and helps him who remembers and meditates on him with love and affection. Your store of past merits is considerable, so you have come here. Now attend to what I say and realize the goal of your life. Begin from tomorrow the study of Bhagavat. Do 3 saptahas, that is 3 readings during 3 weeks, consciently. The Lord will be pleased with you and will destroy your sorrows. Your illusions will vanish and you will get eternal peace. On seeing that his end was approaching, Baba prescribed his remedy and made him read Rama Vijaya, which pleases the god of death. Next morning, after bathing and other purifying rites, he commenced to read Bhagavat at a secluded spot in the Lendi garden. He completed 2 readings and thereafter felt much exhausted. He returned to the Vada and stayed in his lodging for 2 days, and on the 3rd day he breathed his last on Fakir Bade Baba's lap. Baba asked the people to preserve the body for a day for a reason. The police afterwards came and on making proper enquiries gave permission for the disposal of the body. It was buried in a proper place with due rites. In this way, Baba helped the sannyasi and ensured him Sadgati, salvation. 2. Balaram Mankar. There was a householder devotee of Baba by name Balram Mankar. When his wife passed away, he got dejected and entrusting his household to his son, left home and came to Shirdi and lived with Baba. Being pleased with this devotion, Baba wanted to give a good turn to his life, and he did it in this way. He gave him rupees 12 and asked him to go and live in Machindraghad, district Satara. Mankar was first unwilling to go and stay away from Baba, but Baba convinced him that he was giving the best course for him and asked him to practice meditation thrice a day in the Ghad. On believing in Baba's words, Mankar went to the Ghad. He was much pleased with the serenity, pure water, healthy air, and the surroundings of the place and began to practice assiduously the meditations as recommended by Baba. After some days, he got a revelation. Generally, bhaktas get revelation in their samadhi or trance state, but in Mankar's case, he got it when he came down on to his ordinary consciousness from his trance. Baba appeared to him in person. Not only that Mankar saw him, but he also asked him why he was being sent there. Baba replied, "In Shirdi, many thoughts and ideas began to rise in your mind, and I sent you here to bring your unsteady mind to rest. You thought that I was in Shirdi with a body composed of 5 elements and 3.5 cubits in length. Now you see and determine for yourself whether the person you see here now is the same you saw at Shirdi. It is for this reason that I sent you here." Then after the period was over, Mankar left the Ghad and proceeded to his native place Bandra. He wanted to travel by rail from Pune to Dadar, but when he went to the booking office to get a ticket, he found it was very much crowded. He found he could not get his ticket soon. When a villager with langoti on his waist and kambali on his shoulder turned up and said, "Where are you going?" "To Dadar," replied Mankar. Then he said, "Please take this Dadar ticket of mine. As I have some urgent work here, I have cancelled my Dadar trip." Mankar was very glad to receive the ticket and was taking out money from his pocket when the rustic disappeared in the crowd. Mankar tried to find him out in the crowd, but in vain. He waited for him till the train left the station, but found no traces of him. This was the second revelation Mankar got in a strange form. Then Mankar, after visiting his home, again returned to Shirdi and remained there at Baba's feet, following his bidding and advice. In the end, he was very fortunate to leave this world in the presence of Baba. 3. Tatya Sahib Nulkar. Hemad Pant gives no particulars regarding Tatya Sahib Nulkar except the bare mention of the fact that he gave up his ghost in Shirdi. A brief summary of his account that appeared in Sai Leela magazine is given here. Tatya Sahib was a sub-judge at Pandharpur in 1909 when Nana Sahib Chandorkar was Mamlatdar there. Both met often and exchanged words. Tatya Sahib did not believe in saints, while Nana Sahib respected them. Nana Sahib often told him the Leelas of Sai Baba and pressed him to go to Shirdi and see Baba. Nulkar finally agreed to go to Shirdi on 2 conditions. He must get a Brahmin cook and he must get good Nagpur oranges for the presentation. Both these conditions were providentially fulfilled. A Brahmin came to Nana Sahib for service and he went to Tatya Sahib, and a fruit parcel containing 100 beautiful oranges were received by Tatya Sahib, the consignor being unknown. As the conditions were fulfilled, Tatya Sahib had to go to Shirdi. At first, Baba was much enraged with him, But by and by, Tatya Sahib got such experience that he was convinced that Baba was God incarnate. So he was enamored of Baba and stayed there till his death. As his end was approaching, sacred literature was read out to him, and at the last hour, Baba's Pada Tirth was brought and given to him for drinking. Baba, on hearing of his death, said, "Oh, Tatya went ahead of us, he won't be reborn." Megha. The story of Megha has been already described in chapter 28. When Megha died, all the villagers followed the funeral procession. Baba also accompanied them and showered flowers on Megha's body. After the obsequies were performed, tears flowed from Baba's eyes like an ordinary mortal. Baba showed himself overcome with grief and sorrow. Then, covering the body with flowers and crying like a near relation, Baba returned to the masjid. Many saints have been giving Sadgati to men, but Baba's greatness is unique. Even an animal like tiger came to Baba's feet for being delivered from demerits. It is this story which will be narrated now. Tiger. 7 days before Baba passed away, a wonderful incident occurred at Shirdi. There came a country cart and stopped in front of the masjid. A tiger was on the cart, fastened with iron chains, with its agonized face turned to the rear. It was suffering from some pain malady. Its keepers, 3 dervishes, had been taking it from place to place, making money by exhibiting it. It was the means of their subsistence. They tried all sorts of remedy to cure it from the malady it was suffering from, but all in vain. When they heard of Baba's fame and came to him with the animal, they got it down and with chains in their hands and made it stand at the door. It was naturally fierce, besides disease-ridden, so it was restless. The people began to look at it with fright and amazement. The Dervishis told Baba everything about the animal, and with his consent brought it before him. As it approached the steps, it retreated on account of the awe of Baba and hung its head down. When both saw each other, it got on to the step and looked at Baba with affection. Immediately it moved the tuft of tail and dashed it thrice against the ground, and then fell down senseless. On seeing it dead, the Dervishis were much dejected and full of sorrow, but on proper thought they came to terms with it. They considered that as the animal was diseased and nearing its end, it was very meritorious on its part that it met its death at the feet of Baba. It was their debtor, and when the debt was paid off, it was free and met its end at Sai's feet. When any creature bow down their heads at saints' feet and meet death, they were liberated. Unless they have got a good store of merit on their account, how could they get such a meritorious end? Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 31. Chapter 32. In quest of Guru and God. Fasting disapproved. In this chapter, Hemad Pant describes 2 things. 1. How Baba met his Guru in the woods and through him God, and how Baba made Mrs. Gokhale, who had made up her mind to fast for 3 days, eat Puran Polis. Preliminary. In the beginning, Hemad Pant describes the Sansara, visible world, by the allegory of Ashwatha, banyan tree, which has in the phraseology of the Gita roots above and branches below. Its branches are spread downward and upward and are nourished by the gunas, qualities, and its sprouts are the objects of the senses. Its roots leading to action are extended downwards to this world of men. Its form cannot be known in this world, nor its end, its beginning, nor its support. After cutting this Ashwatha tree of strong roots with the sharp weapon of non-attachment, one should seek the path beyond treading which there is no return. For traversing this path, the help of a good guide, Guru, is absolutely necessary. However learned a man may be, or however deep his study of Vedas and Vedant may be, he cannot reach his destination safely if the guide be there to help him and show him the right way. He would avoid the pitfalls and the wild beasts on the journey move ahead. Baba's experience in this matter through the story which he gave out himself is really wonderful, which when attended to will give you faith, devotion and salvation. The quest. Once four of us were studying religious scriptures and other books, and thus being enlightened, we began to discuss the nature of Brahma. One of us said that we should raise the self with self efforts and not depend on others. To this, the second replied that he who controls his mind is blessed. We should be free from thoughts and ideas, and there is nothing in this world without us. The third said that the world phenomenon is always changing. The formless is eternal, so we should discriminate between the unreal and the real. And the fourth, Baba himself, urged that bookish knowledge alone is worthless, and added, let us do our prescribed duty and surrender our body, mind, and five pranas to the Guru's feet. Guru is God, all pervading. To get this conviction, strong, unbounded faith is necessary. While discussing in this way, we four learned men began to ramble through the woods in the quest of God. The three wanted to make the quest with their free, unaided intellect. On the way, a Vanjari, a man who trades in certain things such as grains, etc., by carrying them on bullock cart, met us and asked us, it is hot now. Where and how far are you going? In the woods, we replied. He inquired on what quest you are bound. We gave him an ambiguous and evasive reply. On seeing us rambling aimlessly, he was moved and said, without knowing the woods fully, you should not wander at random. If you want to walk through forests and jungles, you should take a guide with you. Why do you exert yourself unnecessarily during this hot noon sun? You may not give out to me your secret of the quest, still, you can sit down, eat bread, drink water, take rest, and then go. Be always patient at heart. Though he spoke so tenderly, we discarded his request and marched on. We thought that we were self contained men and nobody need to help. The woods were vast and trackless. The trees therein grew so close and tall that the sun's rays could not penetrate through them. So we lost our way and wandered here and there for a long time. Ultimately, through sheer good luck, we came back to the place from where we started. The Vanjari met us again and said, by relying on your own cleverness, you missed your way. A guide is always necessary to show us the right way in small or great matters, and no quest can be successfully carried out in an empty stomach. Unless God wills it, no one meets us on the way. Do not discard offers of food. Served dish should not be thrust away. Offers of food should be regarded as auspicious signs of success. On saying this, he again offered us food and asked us to be calm and patient. Again, my companions did not like this unsolicited hospitality and discarded this offer. Without doing any quest and without taking any food, the three began to move out. So obstinate were they. I was hungry and thirsty, and I was moved by the Vanjari's extraordinary love. We thought ourselves very learned, but were strangers to kindness. The Vanjari was quite illiterate and unqualified fellow and belonged to a low caste. Still, he had love in his heart and asked us to eat the bread. In this way, he who loves others disinterestedly is really enlightened. And I thought acceptance of this hospitality was the best beginning of getting knowledge. So, very respectfully, I accepted the loaf of bread offered, ate it, and drank water. Then lo, the Guru came and stood before us. What was the dispute about? He asked, and I told him everything that had happened. Then he said, "Would you like to come with me? I will show you what you want. But he alone who believes in what I say will be successful." The others did not agree to what he said and left him, but I bowed to him reverentially and accepted his dictum. Then he took me to a well, tied my feet with a rope, and hung me, head downwards and feet up, from a tree near the well. I was suspended 3 feet above water, which I could not reach with my hands nor with my mouth. After suspending me in this manner, he went away, no one knew where. After 12 or 10 gatakas, 4 or 5 hours, he returned, and after taking me out quickly, asked me how I fared. In bliss supreme I was. How can a fool like me describe the joy I experienced? I replied. On hearing my answers, the Guru was very much pleased with me, drew me near him, and stroking my head with his hand, kept me with him. He took care of me as tenderly as a mother bird does for her young ones. He put me into his school. How beautiful it was! There I forgot my parents, all my attachment was snapped, and I was liberated easily. I thought that I should embrace him and keep staring at him always. If this message was not fixed in my eyes, I would better be blind. Such was the school. No one who entered it once could return empty handed. My Guru became my all in all, my home, mother and father, everything. All my senses left their places and concentrated themselves in my eyes, and my sight was centered on him. Thus, my Guru was with the sole object of my meditation, and I was conscious of none else. While meditating on him, my mind and intellect were silent, and I had thus to keep quiet and bow to him in silence. There are other schools where you see an altogether different spectacle. The disciples go there to seek knowledge and spend their money, time, and labor, but ultimately they don't gain much. The Guru there boasts of his secret knowledge and his straightforwardness. He makes a show of his sacredness and holiness. He speaks a lot and sings his own glory, but his own words do not touch the disciples' heart, and they are not convinced. So far as self realization is concerned, he has not reached that. How can such schools be of any use to the disciples, and how can they be benefited? The master Guru mentioned above was of different type. By his grace, realization flashed upon me of itself without effort or study. I had nothing to seek, everything came clear to me as broad light. The Guru alone knows how the inverse suspension with head down and feet up can give happiness. Among the four, one was karmatha, ritualistic, only knew how to observe and abstain from certain rites. The second was dhyani, who was puffed with pride of knowledge, and the third was a bhakta, who surrendered himself completely to God, believing that he was the sole doer. When they were discussing and arguing, the question of God came up, and they, depending on their unaided knowledge, went in search of him. Sai, who was discrimination and dispassion incarnate, was one of the four. On being himself Brahma incarnate, some may ask, why did he mix with them and act foolishly? He did this for setting an example to follow. Though an incarnation himself, he respected a low Vanjari by accepting his food with the firm faith that food is Brahma, and showed how those who rejected Vanjari's hospitable offer suffered, and how it was impossible to get dhyan without a guru. The Shruti, Taittiriya Upanishad, exhorts us to honor and worship mother, father, and preceptor, and to study, learn, and teach the sacred scriptures. These are the means of purifying our mind, and unless this purification is ejected, self realization is not possible. Neither the senses nor the mind and intellect reach the self. Modes of proof, such as perception and inference, will not help us in the matter. It is the grace of Guru that counts. The objects of our life, such as dharma, artha, and kama, are attainable with our effort, but the fourth object, moksha, can only be had with the help of the Guru. In the life story of Sri Sai, many personalities appear and play their part. Astrologers come and give out their predictions, princes, noblemen, ordinary and poor men, sannyasis, yogis, singers, and others came for darshan. Even a mahar comes and makes a johar, says, Sai is my Bap. Who will do away with our rounds of birth and death? So many others, such as jugglers, gondhelis who sing devotional songs, the blind and the lame, nath panits, dancers, and other players come and are given suitable reception. The Vanjari also appeared at the right time and played the part assigned to him. Let us now revert to the other story. Fasting and Mrs. Gokhale. Baba never fasted himself, nor did he allow others to do so. The mind of the person who fasts is never at ease. Then how could he attain his paramartha? God is not attained on an empty stomach. First, the soul has to be appeased. If there is no food in the stomach and nutrition, with what eyes should we see God? With what stomach and with what tongue should we describe his greatness, and with what ears should we hear the same? In short, when all our organs get their proper nutrition, we are sound, we can practice devotion and other sadhanas to attain God. Therefore, neither fasting nor overeating is good. Moderation in diet is really wholesome, both to the body and the mind. One Mrs. Gokhale came to Shirdi with an introductory letter from Mrs. Kashibai Kanitkar, a devotee of Baba, to Dada Khelkar. She came to Baba with a determination to sit at Baba's feet and observe a 3 days fast. The previous day, Baba said to Dada Khelkar that he would not allow his children to starve during the Shimga, that is, holy holidays, and that if they had to starve, why was he there? Next day, when the woman went with Dada Khelkar and sat at Baba's feet, Baba at once said to her, Where is the necessity of fasting? Go to Dada Bhatt's house, prepare the dish of Puran Polis, wheat rotis with gram flour and jaggery, feed his children and yourself too. Shimga holidays were on. Mrs. Khelkar was then going through her menses and there was nobody to cook in Dada Bhatt's house. So Baba's advice was very timely. Then Mrs. Gokhale had to go to Dada Bhatt's house, prepare the dish as directed. She cooked that, fed others and herself. What a good story and how beautiful its import. Baba's Sarkar. Baba gave a story of his boyhood as follows. When I was a youngster, I was in search of bread and went to Beed. There I got embroidery work. I worked hard, sparing no pains. The employer was very much pleased with me. 3 other boys worked before me. The first got rupees 50, the second rupees 100, and the third rupees 150, and I was given twice the total of this amount, that is 600. After seeing my cleverness, the employer loved me, praised me, and honored me with a full dress, a turban on the head, and a sheela for the body, etc. I kept this dress intact without using it. I thought that what a man might give does not last long and it always imperfect. But what my Sarkar, God, gives lasts to the end of time. No other gift from any man can be compared to his. My Sarkar says, take, but everybody comes to me and says, give. Nobody attends carefully to the meaning of what I say. My Sarkar's treasury, spiritual wealth is full, it is overflowing. I say, dig out and take away this wealth in cart loads. The blessed son of a true mother should fill himself with this wealth. The skill of my fakir, the leelas of my lord, and the aptitude of my Sarkar is quite unique. What about me? Body will mix with the earth, breath with air. This time won't come again. No matter where I go or where I sit, Maya always troubles me such. Still, I am always anxious for my men. He who does anything spiritual endeavor will reap its fruit, and he who remembers these words of mine will get invaluable happiness. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 32. Chapter 33. Greatness of Udi. Scorpion sting and plague cases cured. Jamner miracle. Narayan Rao's sickness. Bhala Bua Suthar. Apa Sahib Kulkarni. Hari Bhua Karnik. In the last chapter, we described the greatness of the Guru. Now, in this, we will describe the greatness of Udi. However, both are interlinked. The greatness of Udi is due to the spiritual grandeur of Baba. Preliminary. Let us now bow before the great saints. Their merciful glances will destroy mountains of sins and do away with all the blemishes of our character. Their talk gives us good teachings and confers on us invaluable happiness. Their minds do not know any difference, such as this is ours and that is yours. Such differentiation never arises in their minds. Their debts, obligations will never be repaid by us in this birth, as well as in many future births. Udi. It is well known that Baba took dakshina from all, and out of the amount thus collected, he spent on charity and purchased fuel. This fuel he put in the dhuni, the sacred fire which kept ever burning. The ashes from this fire was called Udi, and it was freely distributed to the devotees at the time of their departure from Shirdi. What did Baba teach by this Udi? Baba taught by this Udi that all the visible phenomena in the universe are transient as the ash. Our bodies, composed of matter of 5 elements, will fall down after all the enjoyments are over and be reduced to ashes. In order to remind the devotees of the fact that their bodies will be reduced to ashes, Baba distributed Udi to them. Baba also taught by the Udi that the Brahma is the only reality and the universe is ephemeral, and that no one in this world, be he a son, father, or wife, is really ours. We come here in this world alone, and we have to go from here alone. It has been found that the Udi cured many physical and mental maladies, but Baba wanted to repeat into the devotees' ears the principle of discrimination between the unreal and the real. He taught non-attachment for the unreal by his Udi and Dakshina. The former Udi taught us discrimination, and the latter Dakshina taught us non-attachment. Unless we have two things, it is not possible for us to cross over the sea of mundane existence. So Baba asked for Dakshina, and while the devotees took leave, he gave Udi as prasadam, besmeared some of it on their foreheads, and placed his boon-conferring hand on them. When Baba was in a cheerful mood, he used to sing merrily. One such song was about Udi. The meaning of this song was, "O playful Ram, come, come, and bring with you sacks of Udi." Baba used to sing in very clear and tender tones. So, besides the spiritual implications of Udi, it had also its material significance. It conferred health, prosperity, freedom from anxiety, and many other worldly gains. So, the Udi has helped us to gain both our ends, material as well as spiritual. We shall now begin with the stories about the Udi. Scorpion sting. Narayan Moti Ram Jani of Nasik was a devotee of Baba. He was serving under another devotee of Baba by name Ramchandra Vaman Modak. Once he went to Shirdi with his mother and saw Baba. Then Baba himself told her that her son should start independent business. Some days after his prophecy turned true, Narayan Jani left service and started a boarding house, Anand Ashram, which thrived well. Once a friend of his, this Narayan Rao, was stung by a scorpion, and the pain caused by it was severe and unbearable. Udi is most efficacious in such cases. It is to be applied on the point of pain, and so Narayan Rao searched for it but found none. Then he stood before Baba's picture and invoked Baba's aid, chanted Baba's name, and taking out a pinch of the ashes of the joss stick burning in front of Baba's picture and thinking it as Baba's Udi, applied it on the seat of pain and the sting. As soon as he moved his fingers, the pain vanished and both the persons were moved and felt delighted. Bubonic plague case. Once a devotee in Bandra came to know that his daughter who was staying in another place, was down with bubonic plague. He had no Udi with him, so he sent word to Nana Sahib Chandorkar to send the same. Nana Sahib got this message en route Thana railway station when he was travelling with his wife to Kalyan. He had no Udi with him then. He therefore took up some dust from the road, meditated upon Sai Baba, invoked his aid, and applied it to his wife's forehead. The devotee was very glad to learn that this daughter, who was suffering for 3 days, began to improve from the very moment Nana Sahib invoked Baba's aid near the Thana railway station. The Jamner miracle. In the year 1905, Nana Sahib Chandorkar was Mamlatdar at Jamner in the Khandesh district, which is more than 100 miles from Shirdi. His daughter Menathai was pregnant and was due to deliver. Her case was very serious and she was suffering from labor pains for the last 2 or 3 days. Nana Sahib tried all remedies but in vain. Then he remembered Baba and invoked his aid. There in Shirdi, one Ramgir Bhua, whom Baba called Bapu Gir Bhua, was leaving for his native place in Khandesh. Baba called him, gave the Udi and Arati to Nana Sahib. Ramgir Bhua said that he had only 2 rupees with him and this amount was barely sufficient for the railway fare up to Jalgaon, and it was not possible for him to go to Jalgaon to Jamner, a distance of about 30 miles. Baba assured him that he need not care, as everything would be provided for. Then Baba asked Shama to write a well-known Arati composed by Madhav Adkar and gave a copy of it with Udi to Ramgir Bhua to be delivered to Nana Sahib. Then, relying on Baba's words, Ramgir Bhua left Shirdi and reached Jalgaon at about 2:45 a.m. He had only 2 annas left with him and he was in a plight. To his great relief, he heard somebody calling out, "Who is Bapu Gir Bhua of Shirdi?" He went to him and told him that he was Bapu Gir Bhua. Then the person, professing to be sent by Nana Sahib, took him to an excellent tonga with a good pair of horses. They both drove in it. The tonga ran fast, and early in the morning they came to a brooklet. The man took the horses for watering them, and he asked Ramgir Bhua to partake of some eatables. On seeing the bread, moustache, and the livery of that person, Ramgir suspected him to be a Muslim and was unwilling to take any refreshments from him, but he satisfied Ramgir Bhua by saying that he was a Hindu, a Kshatriya of Gharwal, and that Nana Sahib had sent these refreshments and there should be no difficulty in its acceptance. Then both of them took the refreshments and started again. They reached Jamner at dawn. Ramgir Bhua alighted to attend a call of nature and returned within a few minutes, but found that there was no tonga and no driver. He was dumbfounded. Then he went to the neighboring Kacheri and on making inquiries learned that The Mamlatdar was at home. He went to Nana Sahib's house and gave to Nana Sahib Baba's Udi and Arati. At this time, Mainatai's case was in the most serious condition and all were in deep anxiety about her. Nana Sahib called out his wife and asked her to give the Udi mixed with water to their daughter to drink. He thought that Baba's help was most opportune. In a few minutes came the news that the delivery was safe and the crisis had passed away. When Ramgir Bhua thanked Nana Sahib for the pune, tonga and the refreshments, etc., the latter was greatly surprised as he had not sent none to the station and was not aware of any person coming from Shirdi. Mr. B.V. Dev of Thana, retired Mamlatdar, made inquiries about this matter with Bapu Rao Chandorkar, son of Nana Sahib, and Ramgir Bhua of Shirdi, and after satisfying himself, wrote an elaborate article, part prose and part poetry, in the Sri Sai Leela magazine, volume 13, numbers 11, 12, and 13. B.V. Narasimha also taken down the statements of Mainathayi, number 5, page 14, and 2 Babu Sahib Chandorkar, number 20, page 50, and Ramgir Bhua, number 28, page 83, dated 1st June 1936, 16th September 1936, and 1st December 1936, respectively, and published them in his Devotees' Experiences, Part 3. The following is quoted from Ramgir Bhua's statement. One day Baba called me to him and gave me a packet of Udi and a copy of Baba's Arati. I had to go to Khandesh at that time. Baba directed me to go to Jamner and told me to deliver the Arati and Udi to Nana Sahib Chandorkar at Jamner. I said to Baba that all that I had was ₹2 and asked him how that could take me by train from Kopargaon to Jalgaon and next from Jalgaon to Jamner. Baba said, God will give. That was Friday and I started at once. I reached Manmad at 7:30 p.m. and Jalgaon at 2:45 a.m. At that time, plague regulations were enforced and I had much trouble. I was to discover what I should do to get to Jamner. At about 3 a.m., a pune in boots, turban, and equipped with other details of good dress came to me and took me on a tonga and drove me on. On the way at Bhagbur, I took refreshments. We reached Jamner early in the morning, and by the time I attended my call of nature, the tonga and its driver had disappeared. Page 83. Narayan Rao. Bhakta Narayan Rao, father's name and surname are not given, had the good fortune to see Baba twice during the latter's lifetime. 3 years after the passing away of Baba in 1918, he wanted to come to Shirdi but could not. Within a year of Baba's Mahasamadhi, he fell sick and suffered much. All possible remedies gave him no relief, so he meditated on Baba day and night. One night he had a vision. Baba came through a cellar, comforted him, saying, Don't be anxious. You will be improving from tomorrow, and within a week you will be on your legs. Narayan Rao got perfectly well within the time indicated in the vision. Now the point of consideration is this. Was Baba living because he had the body, or was he dead because he left it? No, Baba is ever alive, for he transcends both life and death. He who loved him wholeheartedly gets response from him at any time and at any place. He is always by our side and will take any form, appear before the devout Bhakta and satisfy him. Appa Sahib Kulkarni. In 1917, Appa Sahib Kulkarni was transferred to Thana and began to worship Baba's picture presented to him by Bhala Sahib Bhatti. In real earnest, he did the worship. He offered flowers, sandal paste, and Naivedya daily to Baba in the picture and longed intently to see him. In this connection, it may be remarked that seeing Baba's picture earnestly is equivalent to seeing him in person. The following story illustrates this statement. Balabua Sutar. A saint of Mumbai named Balabua Sutar, who on account of his piety, devotion and style was called modern Tukharam, came to Shirdi for the first time in 1917. When he bowed before Baba, the latter said, "I know this man since 4 years." Balabua wondered and thought, how could that be, as that was his first trip to Shirdi. But thinking about it seriously, he recollected that he had prostrated himself 4 years ago before Baba's portrait at Mumbai and was convinced about the significance of Baba's words. He said to himself, how omniscient and all pervading are the saints, and how kind are they to their devotees. I merely bow to his photo. But this fact was noticed by Baba, and in due time he made me realize that seeing his photo is equivalent to seeing him in person. Now we return to Appa Sahib's story. While he was in Tana, he had to go on tour to Bhiwandi and was expected to return after a week. In his absence, the following wonderful thing took place on the third day. At noon, a fakir turned up at Appa Sahib's house. His features resembled exactly those of Baba's photo. Mrs. Kulkarni and the children all asked him whether he was Sai Baba of Shirdi. He said no, but that he was an obedient servant of his and came there at his order to enquire after the well-being of the family. Then he asked for dakshina. The lady gave him a rupee. He gave her a small packet of woody and asked her to keep it in the shrine. Then he left the house and went away. Now hear the wonderful Leela of Sai. Appa Sahib could not proceed with his tour as his horse fell sick at Bhiwandi. He returned home that afternoon and learnt from his wife about Fakir's visit. He got very restless as he did not have the darshan of the Fakir. Moreover, he did not like that only 1 rupee was paid to him as dakshina. He said that had he been present, he would have paid not less than 10 rupees. Then he immediately started in the quest of the Fakir and searched for him in the masjid and other places without taking any food. His search was in vain. Then he returned home and took his food. The readers may remember here Baba's dictum in chapter 32 that God's quest should not be made on an empty belly. Then after meals, he went out for a walk with a friend, Mr. Chitre. After going some distance, they saw a man approaching them rapidly. Appa Sahib thought that he must be the fakir that came to his home at noon, as his features tallied with those of Baba in the photo. The fakir immediately put forth his hand and asked for dakshina. Appa Sahib gave him a rupee. He demanded again and again, and so Appa Sahib gave him 2 more. Still he was not satisfied. Then he borrowed rupees 3 from Mr. Chitre and gave him. He wanted still more. Appa Sahib asked him to accompany him to his home. Then they all returned home and Appa Sahib gave him 3 rupees, in all 9. He looked unsatisfied and demanded again. Then Appa Sahib told him that he had a currency note of rupees 10. The fakir asked for the same, took it and returned the 9 rupees and went away. Appa Sahib had earlier said that he would pay 10 rupees and that sum was taken from him and 9 rupees consecrated by Baba's touch was returned to him. The figure 9 is significant. It denotes the 9 types of devotion. It may also be noted here that Baba gave 9 coins to one Lakshmi Bai Shinde at his last moment. Appa Sahib examined the Udi packet and found that it contained some flower, leaves and akshata. Then some time afterwards he got a hair from Baba when he saw him at Shirdi. He put the Udi packet and the hair in a tabiz and wore it always on his arm. Appa Sahib realized the power of the Udi. Though he was very efficient, he got rupees 40 as pay in the beginning, but after he secured Baba's photo and his Udi, he got many more times and also got much power and influence, and along with these temporal benefits, his spiritual progress was also rapid. So those who are fortunate enough to get Baba's Udi should, after bath, apply it on the forehead and take some of it mixed with water as holy teeth. Haribhav Karnik. In 1917, Haribhav Karnik of Dahanu, Thana district, came to Shirdi on the Guru Purnima day in the month of Ashada and worshipped Baba with all formalities. He offered clothes and dakshina, and after taking Baba's leave, got down to the steps of the masjid. Then he thought that he should offer one more rupee to Baba and was just turning to climb up again. Then, when Shama signaled him by gesture that he had got Baba's leave, he should go and not return. So he started for home. On his way, when he went into the temple of Kalaram at Nasik for darshan, the ancient Narsingh Maharaj, who used to sit inside the temple, came to Haribua, caught him by the wrist and said, "Give me my 1 rupee." Karnik was surprised. He paid the rupee most willingly and thought that Sai Baba recovered that rupee which he intended in his mind to give through Saint Narsingh Maharaj. This story illustrates the fact that all saints are one and illustrates how they work in unison. Bhav to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 33. Chapter 34. Greatness of Udi continued. Doctor's nephew, Dr. Pillai, Shama's sister-in-law, Irani girl, Harda gentleman, Mumbai lady. This chapter continues the subject greatness of Udi and describes cases in which the application of Buddhi was most efficacious. Doctor's nephew in Malegaon district Nasik, there lived a doctor, qualified and degree holder. His nephew suffered from an incurable disease, tubercular bone abscess. The doctor, along with his relatives and medical practitioners, tried all sorts of remedies, even a surgery. There was no relief and no end to the little boy's suffering. Friends and relatives advised the parents of the boy to seek divine aid and recommended them to go to Sai Baba, who was known to have cured such incurable cases by his mere glance. The parents therefore came to Shirdi. They prostrated themselves before Baba, placed the boy before him, and pleaded humbly and implored him to save their son. The merciful Baba comforted them, saying, "Those who resort to this masjid shall never suffer anything in this life to the end of time. Now do not worry. Apply Udi on the abscess and within a week he will recover. Believe in God. This is no masjid but Dwaraka Mai. He who steps here will soon get health and happiness and his sufferings will come to an end." The boy was made to sit before Baba, who moved his hand on the affected part and cast his loving glances on him. The patient was pleased, and with the application of the Udi, he began to recover and was all right after some days. The parents then left Shirdi with their son, thanking Baba for the cure, which was effected by Udi and Baba's gracious looks. After knowing this, the doctor, the uncle of the boy, came wonderstruck and desired to see Baba. While he was on his way to Mumbai for some business at Malegaon and Manmad, somebody spoke to him against Baba and poisoned his ears. Therefore, he dropped the idea of visiting Shirdi and went to Mumbai direct. He wanted to spend the rest of his leave at Alibag, but at Mumbai he heard 3 successive nights a voice. "Still you disbelieve me?" Then the doctor changed his mind and resolved to go to Shirdi. He had to attend to a case of infectious fever in Mumbai, which showed no signs of quick abatement, so he thought that his Shirdi trip would be postponed. He, however, proposed a test in his mind and said that if the patient gets all right by today, I will start for Shirdi tomorrow. The wonder is that exactly from that time, when the determination was done, the fever began to abate and the temperature became normal. Then he went to Shirdi as per his determination, took Baba's darshan and prostrated himself before him. Baba gave him such experience that he became his devotee. He stayed there for 4 days and returned home with Baba's Udi and blessings. Within a fortnight, he was transferred on promotion to Bijapur. His nephew's case gave him an opportunity for seeing Baba, and this visit garnered in him a never failing love for the saint's feet. Dr. Pillai. One Mr. Dr. Pillai was an intimate devotee of Baba. He was much liked by Baba, who always called him Bhav. Baba talked to him off and on and consulted him on all matters and wanted him always at his side. This Pillai suffered once very badly from guinea worms. He said to Kaka Sahib Dikshit, "The pain is most excruciating and unbearable. I prefer death to it. This pain I know is for repaying past karma, but go to Baba and tell him to cease the pain and transfer the balance of my past karma to 10 future births of mine." Mr. Dikshit went to Baba and told him his request. Then Baba, being moved by his request, said to Dikshit, "Tell him to be fearless. Why should he suffer for 10 births? In 10 days he can work out the suffering and consequences of his past karma. While I am here to give him temporal and spiritual welfare, why should he pray for death? Bring him here on somebody's back and let us work and finish his sufferings once for all." The doctor was brought in that condition and was seated on Baba's right side. Baba gave him his bolster and said, "Lie down calmly here and be at ease. The true remedy is that the result of past actions has to be suffered and got over. Our karma is the cause of our happiness and sorrow, therefore, put up with whatever comes to you. Allah is the sole dispenser and protector. Think of Him always. He will take care of you. Surrender to Him with body, mind, and speech, and then see what He does." Dr. Pillai said that Nana Sahib had put a bandage over the leg, but he had no relief. "Nana is a fool," replied Baba. "Take off the bandage or else you will die. Now a crow will come and peck at you, and then you will recover." While this conversation was going on, Abdul, who always cleaned the masjid and trimmed the lamps, turned up. While he was attending to his work, his foot accidentally fell upon the stretched leg of Mr. Pillai. The leg was already swollen, and when Abdul's foot fell upon it and pressed it, all the 7 guinea worms were squeezed out of it at once. The pain was unbearable, and Dr. Pillai cried out loudly. After some time he calmed down and began to sing and cry alternately. Then Pillai enquired when the crow was coming and pecking. Baba said, "Did you not see the crow? He won't come again." Abdul was the crow. "Now go and rest in the vada and you will be soon all right." By application of the udi and by taking it orally with water without taking any other treatment or medicine, the disease was completely cured in 10 days, as assured by Baba. Shama's sister-in-law. Shama's younger brother, Bapaji, was staying near the Satvi well. Once his wife was attacked by bubonic plague. She had high fever and 2 buboes in her groin. Bapaji rushed to Shama at Shirdi and asked him to come and help. Shama was frightened, but according to his wont, he went to Baba, prostrated himself before him to invoke his aid by requesting him to cure the case. He also asked his permission to go to his brother's house. Then Baba said, "Don't go there at this late hour. Send her the udi. Why care for the fever and buboes? God is our Father. She will be all right easily. Do not go now. Go there in the morning and return immediately." Shama had full faith in Baba's udi. It was sent with Babaji. It was applied on the buboes, and some of it was mixed with water, given to the patient for drinking. No sooner it was taken in, perspiration set in profusely, the fever abated, and the patient had a sound sleep. Next morning, Bapaji was surprised to see his wife all right with no fever and no buboes. When Shama went there next morning with Baba's permission, he was also surprised to see her in the kitchen preparing tea. On questioning his brother, he learned that Baba's udi cured her completely in one night. Then Shama realized the significance of Baba's words, "Go there in the morning and return immediately." After taking tea, Shama returned and after saluting Baba said, "Deva, what is this play of yours? You first raise a storm and make us restless, and then calm it down and comfort us." Baba replied, "You see, mysterious is the path of action. Though I do nothing, they hold me responsible for the actions which take place on account of destiny. I am only their witness. The Lord is the sole doer and inspirer. He is most merciful. Neither I am God nor master, I am his obedient servant and remember him constantly. He who casts aside his egoism thanks him, and he who him he trusts entirely will have his shackles removed and will obtain liberation. Irani's daughter. Now read the experience of an Irani gentleman. His young daughter got fits every hour. When the convulsions came, she lost her power of speech, her limbs contracted, and she fell down senseless. No remedy gave her any relief. Some friend recommended Baba's Udi to her father and asked him to get it from Kaka Sahib Dikshit at Viliparli, suburb of Mumbai. Then the Irani gentleman got the udi and gave it mixed with water to his daughter daily for drinking. In the beginning, the convulsions, which were coming hourly, came every 7 hours, and after a few days, the daughter recovered completely. Harda gentleman. An old gentleman of Harda was suffering from a stone in his kidney. Such stones are generally removed by surgical operations, and people recommended him to undergo one. He was old and weak, lacked strength of mind, and could not think of submitting himself to surgical treatment. His suffering was soon to end in another way. The Inamdhar, city officer of that town, happened to come there at that time. He was a devotee of Baba and had always a stock of Udi with him. On the recommendation of friends, his son got home Udi from him and after mixing it with water gave it to his old father to drink. Within 5 minutes the Udi was assimilated. The stone was dissolved and came out through his urine, and the old man was soon relieved. Mumbai, Mumbai lady, a woman of the Kashyatha Prabhu caste in Mumbai, always suffered terrible pain at her delivery. She was very much frightened each time she became pregnant and did not know what to do. Sri Ramurthy of Kalyan, who was a devotee of Baba, advised her husband to take her to Shirdi. When she next became pregnant, both husband and wife came to Shirdi, stayed there for some months, and worshipped Baba. After some time, the hour of delivery came, and as usual, there was obstruction in the passage from the womb. She began to suffer labor pains, did not know what to do, but began to pray to Baba for relief. In the meantime, some neighboring woman turned up, and after invoking Baba's aid, gave her udi mixture to drink. In 5 minutes, the woman delivered safely and painlessly. The issue was stillborn according to its fate, but the mother, who got rid of its anxiety and pain, thanked Baba for the safe delivery and ever remained grateful to him. Bhav to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 34. Chapter 35. Tested and never found wanting. Kaka Mahajani's friend and master. Bandra insomnia case. Bhala Patil Nevaskar. This chapter also continues the subject of the importance and effectiveness of the Udi. It also gives two cases in which Baba was tested and not found wanting. These cases will be taken up at first. Preliminary. In spiritual matters or endeavors, sectarianism is the greatest bar to our progress. Those who believe that God is without form are heard saying that to believe that God is in this form is an illusion, and that the saints are the only human beings. Then why should they bow down their heads before them and offer dakshina? Persons belonging to other sects will also raise objections and say, why do they bow and offer allegiance to other saints, leaving their own gurus? Similar objections regarding Sai Baba were heard before and even now. Some said that when they went to Shirdi, Baba asked for dakshina from them. It is good that saints should collect money in this fashion. If they do so, where is this sainthood? But there are many instances where men went to Shirdi to scoff, but remained there to pray. Two such instances are given below. Kaka Mahajani's friend. A friend of Kaka Mahajani was a worshipper of Nirgun, God without form, and was adverse to idolatry. Out of curiosity, he agreed to go to Shirdi with Kaka Mahajani on two conditions, namely, that he would neither bow down to Baba nor pay him any dakshina. Kaka agreed to both these conditions and they both left Mumbai on a Saturday night and reached Shirdi in the next morning. As soon as they put their feet on the steps of the masjid, Baba, looking at the friend from a little distance, addressed him in sweet words as follows: "Oh, welcome, sir." The tone in which he uttered these words was a very peculiar one. It exactly resembled the tone of the friend's father. It reminded him of his departed father and sent a thrill through his body. What an enchanting power the tone had! Being surprised, the friend said, "There is no doubt the voice of my father." Then he at once went up and, forgetting his resolution, placed his head upon Baba's feet. Then Baba again asked for dakshina twice, once in the morning and again at noon, and at that time of taking leave. But he asked it from Kaka only and not from the friend. The latter whispered to Kaka, "Baba asked for dakshina from you twice. I am with you. Why does he ignore me?" "You ask Baba yourself," was Kaka's reply. Baba asked Kaka what his friend was whispering. Then the friend asked Baba himself whether he should pay any dakshina. But Baba replied, "You had no mind to pay, so you were not asked. But if you want to pay now, you may." Then the friend paid rupees 17 as dakshina, the same amount that Kaka paid. Baba then addressed him a few words of advice. "You destroy the tele's wall, sense of difference between us, so that we can see and meet each other face to face." Then Baba allowed him to leave. Though the weather was cloudy and rough, Baba assured them on their safe journey and both of them reached Mumbai safely. When he reached Mumbai home and opened the door and windows of his house, he found two sparrows dead on the ground, one just flying out through a window. He thought that if he had left the windows open, two sparrows would have been saved, but thought again that they had met their lot, and that Baba had sent him back just to save the third sparrow. Kaka Mahajani's master. Kaka was the manager in the firm of Thakkar Dharamse Jetbai, a solicitor of Mumbai. Both the master and the manager were on intimate terms. Mr. Thakkar knew that Kaka was often going to Shirdi, staying there for some days and returning when Baba permitted him. Out of curiosity, Mr. Thakkar decided to go to Shirdi with Kaka during Shimga holidays. As Kaka's return was uncertain, he took another man with him for his company. The three started together and Kaka bought 2 seers of raisins, dried grapes with seed, on the way for presentation to Baba. They reached Shirdi in due time and went to the masjid for darshan. Bala Sahib Tharkar was also there, and Mr. Tharkar asked him why he came there. "For darshan," replied Tharkar. Mr. Thakkar asked if miracles took place there. Tharkar replied that to see miracles was not the concern, the earnest intent of the bhaktas were satisfied here. Then Kaka prostrated himself before Baba and offering the raisins to him, Baba ordered them to be distributed. Mr. Thakkar also got a few of them. He did not want to have the raisins as he was advised by his doctor not to eat them without washing and cleaning them. So he was in a fix. He did not want to eat them, nor could he reject them. To keep up formalities, he put them in his mouth but did not know what to do with the seeds. He could not spit them out on the floor of the masjid, so he pocketed them against his wish. He then said in his mind that if Baba was saint, How could he be ignorant of his dislike for the raisins, and how could he force them on him? When this thought arose in his mind, Baba again gave him some more raisins. He could not eat them up, but held them in his hand. Then Baba asked him to eat them up. He obeyed and found to his surprise that they were all seedless. He wanted to see miracles, and here was one. He knew that Baba read his thought and, as per his wish, converted raisins with seeds into seedless grapes. What a wonderful power! Again, to test further, he asked Tharkad, who was sitting by and who was also got some raisins. What kind of grapes you got? He replied, the variety with seeds. Mr. Thakur was still most surprised to hear this. Then, to confirm his faith further, Thakur thought in his mind that if Baba was a real saint, the raisins should be now given to Kaka first. Reading this thought also, Baba ordered that distribution should commence from Kaka. These proofs were sufficient for Thakur. Then Shama introduced Mr. Thakur as the master of Kaka, upon which Baba said, how could he be his master? He has got a different master altogether. Kaka appreciated this reply. After forgetting his resolve, Thakur saluted Baba and returned to the Vada. After the noon arati was over, they all went to the masjid for taking Baba's leave for their departure. Shama spoke for them. Baba then spoke as follows. There was a fickle-minded gentleman. He had health and wealth and was free from both physical and mental afflictions. But he took on needless anxieties and burdens and wandered hither and thither, thus losing his peace of mind. Sometimes he dropped the burdens and at other times carried them again. His mind knew no steadiness. On seeing his state, I took pity on him and said, now keep your faith on one place you like. Why roam like this? Thakur at once understood that this was an exact description of himself. He wished that Kaka should also return with him, but no one expected that Kaka would be allowed to leave Shirdi so soon. Baba read this thought and also permitted Kaka to return with his master. Then Baba asked Kaka for rupees 15 as dakshina and received it. He said, if I take 1 rupee as dakshina from anybody, I have to return 10 folds to him. I never take anything gratis. I never ask for anyone indiscriminately. I only ask and take from him whom the fakir points out. If anyone is indebted formally to the fakir, dakshina is received from him. The donor gives, that is, sows his seeds only to reap a rich harvest in future. Wealth should not be the means of working out dharma. If it is used for personal enjoyment, it is wasted. Unless you have given it before, you do not get it now. So the best way to receive is to give. The giving of dakshina advances vairagya and thereby bhakti and dhyan. Give 1 and receive 10-fold. On hearing these words, Mr. Thakur himself gave rupees 15 in Baba's hand, forgetting his earlier resolve not to do so. He thought it was good that he came to Shirdi, as all his doubts were solved and he learnt so much. Baba's skill in handling such cases was unique. Though he conducted all that, he was totally non-attached to them, whether anybody saluted him or not, or whether anybody gave him dakshina or not. All was same to him. He felt no pleasure if he was worshipped and felt no pain if he was disregarded. He had transcended the pairs of opposites, that is, pleasure and pain, etc. Insomnia case. A Kayastha Prabhu, gentleman of Bhandra, suffered from insomnia for long. As soon as he lay down for sleep, his departed father appeared to him in his dream, abused and scolded him severely. This disturbed his sleep and made him restless the whole night. Every night this went on, and the man did not know what to do. One day he consulted a devotee of Baba in this respect. He recommended the Udi as the only infallible remedy he knew. He gave him some of the Udi and asked him to apply a little on his forehead before going to bed and keep the Udi packet under his pillow. He tried this remedy and found, to his great surprise and joy, that he had a sound sleep and there was no disturbance of any kind. He continued the remedy and always remembered Sai. Then he got a picture of Sai Baba which he hung on the wall near his pillow and started worshipping it daily, and on Thursdays offered garland, naivedya, etc. Then he got well and forgot his trouble altogether. Balaji Patil Nevaskar. This man was a great devotee of Baba. He rendered excellent and selfless service. Every day he swept and kept clean all the passages and streets in Shirdi through which Baba passed in his daily routine. After him, this work was done equally well by another devotee, Radha Krishnamai, and after her by Abdullah. When Balaji reaped his corn every year, he brought the whole quantity and presented it to Baba. He returned with what Baba gave him back and maintained himself and his family with that. This course was followed by him for many years, and after him by his son also. Power and efficacy of Udi. Once it happened that at Balaji's death anniversary a certain number of guests were invited and the dinner was prepared for them. But at the time it was found that thrice the number of people invited turned up. Mrs. Nevaskar was in a fix. She thought that the food would not suffice for the people assembled, and if it fell short, the honor of the family would be at stake. Her mother-in-law comforted her by saying, "Don't be afraid. It is not ours, but Sai's food. Corner every vessel with cloth, putting some udi in it, and serve from the same without opening it. Sai will save us from ignominy." She did as she was advised, and it was found to his surprise and joy that only did the food suffice for all, but plenty of it remained after serving. As one feels intently, so he realizes accordingly, was proved in this case. Sai appearing as serpent. Once Raghu Patil of Shirdi went to Balaji Patil of Nevase. That evening he found that a serpent entered the cowshed hissing. All the cattle were afraid and became restless. The inmates of the house were frightened, but Balaji thought that it was Sai who appeared in his house as a serpent. Without being afraid in the least, he brought a cup of milk and placed it before the serpent. Said, "Baba, why do you hiss like this? Why do you frighten us? Take this cup of milk and drink it with a calm mind." Saying this, he sat down close by. The other members were frightened and did not know what to do. In a short time, the serpent disappeared of its own, and nobody knew where it went. It was not found, though a thorough search was made in the cowshed. Balaji had 2 wives and some children. They sometimes went to Shirdi from Nevase for taking Baba's darshan. Then Baba brought saris and other clothes which were given to them with his blessings. Bhav to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. End of chapter 35.